Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming along to my talk today. I'm Derek Campbell, and today I'll be talking about putting the ops in DevOps with Octopus Runbooks. So let's jump in. So what's on the agenda for today's talk? We'll talk a little bit about me, which is one of the things that I find quite difficult to do at times. We'll then jump into what are runbooks, and then some of the problems that they solve. And then we'll do a quick use case, go over some use cases, and then lastly jump in to a demo. Uh, and just one thing is we will be doing a Q&A at the end of today session. To get the Q&A up, if you take a moment and open up Slido, so that's sli.do, and then the code is Y860. I'll address those questions at the end of the session, and then from there, we'll wrap up. And then I believe that's the last talk of today. So thank you very much for taking the time to join the virtual conference. Unfortunately, we can't meet in person. But yeah, so who is Derek? He's me. Hello. So yeah, I've been in IT for about 15 years now. Started out a long time ago when I actually had hair. It was long and luxurious. It wasn't actually. But yeah, I started out in 2005. Before that, it was always a bit of a hobby. I used to run IRC networks, and I was generally found down the back of computers, either building or fixing them. I then moved into, I got a job in a help desk for a photo processing company, helping some of their systems. And what I did there was started out, and it's quite funny. What I started in is working with developers very early on in my career. Back then it was Java. Since then there's been mostly .NET, etc. But I started in that help desk, and then from there I used to write some old HTML and support the Java developers for the ordering and online ordering system. I moved into system administration, and I was there for a while. So I do come from a hardcore operations background where we used to say no and wag our fingers. Obviously, times have changed, thankfully, in the DevOps world. From there, I moved into a system architect role, and it was also a bit of DevOps. So I started in DevOps in 2013 when I was tasked to automate some deployments for Sitecore, along with a couple of developers. And with that, we started using Team City, Octopus Deploy. We then started using things like Atlassian and actually bug tracking things. From there, I was actually tasked to set up some of the build servers, the Octopus Deploy, start helping and adding things. And at the same time, I then became a system architect as well. And what I was able to do there with that experience was I was able to um, design systems that were easy to deploy to. I moved into principal DevOps, and what I did, worked with customers defining some of their hosting solutions on Azure or AWS, on-prem as well. And with that is their CI/CD processes for a range of CMSs, using a bunch of tools like Jenkins and so forth as well. I am now a CI/CD architect at Octopus. You'll see probably a bit of a giveaway here. And the t-shirt as well. The t-shirts are available on shop.octopus.com if you're keen to see it. But yeah, certainly if you want to check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at DevOps Derek as well. Okay, enough about me. So what are runbooks? Traditionally, runbooks used to be a Word document or even a wiki page where you would have things like, you may copy and paste scripts before ops started using source control. And it tended to be when things were going wrong or just some routine maintenance. So you paste that into something like Confluence, and then you could have something to run when things went wrong. Problem is often sometimes stuff went wrong, which meant you couldn't get access to conference. Not a great start, but runbooks are there generally, or also known as playbooks. A couple of different um, definitions for them. But what are runbooks today? Runbooks are generally the ops side of the DevOps side of things, and with DevOps, I'm a big believer in. I don't believe DevOps is a single job. I believe there's normally big dev, little ops, people who have some basic understanding of operations, and then same idea, little dev. You need to understand. You need to be able to write some Bash scripts, maybe some PowerShell, and those tend to work quite well together. So runbooks are generally used to automate routine configuration and maintenance, and you can use them for things like installing IIS. Like for instance, I mean, as previous an operations person, you can only install IIS or SQL so many times before it becomes a little bit tedious. And what you can do is you can use runbooks to install and infrastructure as code to install things like IIS. And the big thing here is the maintenance side of things as well. It's not only can you do it to configure, but you can also do maintenance as well. And that's the bit that is quite key as well. Another thing is the emergency operations. For instance, your primary node is likely in Azure or AWS, and you may have a secondary region and that you fail over to. So normally what you'll find is you can use it for failing over to disaster recovery. That's in the case of a region going offline, and you normally have some form of global load balancer, or you make a change to DNS and point it to region 2. You can also use it for infrastructure and provisioning. And we do actually use runbooks as part of Octopus Cloud. So we use Octopus. We use Octopus to deploy Octopus along with some Terraform as well. And you can also do things like database management as well. And with that, you can also do things like Windows updates, etc. But I'll cover that in just a moment. Runbooks is only something that's been possible within Octopus for quite a long time now. However, it tended to be there's a few different approaches to it. You normally found that you had a deployment process that had things like it may stop restart a application or a SQL backup, or provisioning a new database as part of that. So you can use runbooks for all of that. It was you've been able. Additionally, you could also have a separate project, and then just run those on certain tasks, certain tentacles as well. It was released late last year, so that was in 2019 on 2019-11 on Fastlane, and then also once we moved that over to 2019-12, which is a long-term support version. So why runbooks? Well, really, it's the key thing here is automation. Runbooks with Octopus. Well, actually, let's take a step back. Runbooks tend to be things that you would normally have like as a developer. So, say you have Dave the developer. Dave the developer, he needs a SQL backup from production. He's working on some code, and what happens is Dave, he's working away. He's like, I need a new production database. So he logs a ticket. He waits 2 days for the ticket to be picked up. It's then picked up by Steve the sysadmin. Steve the sysadmin, it takes maybe a day to do that. Next minute, so you're suddenly looking at 3 days for that. Whereas really, you can script that out. And what it does is, what Runbooks does is it brings dev and ops closer together. And with that, what you can do is you can really drill down the time between the request and the delivery. And with Octopus and Runbooks, you can do that within a few minutes. So the good thing with Runbooks on Octopus is that the Runbooks and deployment processes sit side by side. Octopus, you normally find that you've got a tentacle installed, and it's already aware of your infrastructure because you've normally got your tentacle on almost all your infrastructure. You may find that you don't, but from there, you can just go ahead and just use the same tentacle to run your runbook. Grab that SQL backup, run that maintenance process, install IIS, and it gives you the discoverability of your infrastructure. Along with that is you can also run it instead of Steve the sysadmin logging on, doing the SQL backup, grabbing a copy of the backup, pasting it onto a network share, putting a password on it, and then sharing that with Dave the developer. You can do that from a central location, which is fully audited. It's controlled by permissions and security as well. And you can see that Steve the sysadmin has went in. Actually, well, in this instance, you would probably want Dave the developer to go in. He can then grab that direct as an artifact from Octopus or from a set location. And the good thing here is you've got automation and scheduling. So you can use triggers and it's fully automated. So it means that Steve sysadmin can get on with his daily tasks that he wants to do. And also, Dave, the developer, he wants to go in and grab whatever he requires. So you can just automate that full approach. One thing that I have actually used recently was with Runbooks, you can also use it to have automated resolution in production, for instance. We had Octopus, we had a bit of an issue recently with our website where we had a bad gateway occasionally. It would happen infrequently, but it was something enough that caused us some concern. And what I did is I jumped on, and it's not something that it was built to do. But what we did is I built out a runbook that automatically restarted the application. What we would do is run a runbook every 5 minutes, and it tested the website. And from there, if it was down, it would then go ahead and restart that. It was a little bit more nuanced than that, but you can build that out so that you could, for instance, someone's on call, the website goes down at 2 a.m. No one really wants to jump up. They'll get their call, they'll jump up, they'll have sleep in their eyes, and then from there, they'll log on. They're trying to have a look and fix something, and it's not a great it's not a great experience for anyone who's been there. I've been there. I spent about 10 years on call. The good thing is with Runbooks, you can test and fix in production. It's a bit like monitoring, but you have an automated resolution. So within Octopus, you've got runbooks versus deployments. The good thing is you don't have to you don't need a release. That's one of the major blockers that used to happen with doing operations as a deployment, and that is something that we used to see quite a lot. To be honest, we also did it at Octopus as well, where we would go in and disable the deployment process. We'd have to go in, create a new release, go in, disable all the steps that actually want to deploy something so that we could run the operation tasks. So you don't need to do that within Runbooks, but it does sit within the same project as well. Life cycles. Within Octopus, you have something that's called life cycles. It's how you control how your application is deployed. So you normally find that you have dev, test, pre-prod, and production, and sometimes you've got a few other environments you need to get through. So like that, you don't have to have it run like that, and that's a good thing because with Runbooks, more often than not, it'll be production that you're looking for, or even test. Like you can use infrastructure as code to deploy infrastructure. And then obviously, say a tester comes along, he wants to test something in a brand new setup. We've all been there before where we go to test something and it works on my machine. And then it's because you've got X, Y, Z installed in your machine, and then it gets to production, it all blows up because X, Y, Z isn't there. And the good thing here is within the dashboard, they are separate. So they are within the runbooks are within the same project, but are not within the same dashboard. And also, a project can have many runbooks, so really there's no limit there. You can have, if you've got several hundred, I'd probably ask some questions, but you can have as many as you require. And again, the permissions are slightly different. So if someone has access to do deployments, then they don't necessarily have access to the runbooks as well. And one of the things that I absolutely adore is that variables are shared. This really helps down. For instance, you'll normally have some form of URL or SQL connection string. You don't have to go in then and recreate that for every, copy and pasting passwords from key vaults, etc., or making that API call to pull that back. What you can do is you configure it once and then you reuse it, and you can use it in either runbooks or deployments as well. So from there, let's jump into some use cases. I covered this very briefly. You normally find that you've got a tester. They'll be on a schedule. They'll have to do testing of a particular application. Say on Tuesday, for instance. And what they want is they want a clean bit of infrastructure where they can go in and test and make sure this is exactly like it's going to be in production. And infrastructure as code is a great approach. And with that, you can configure runbooks to provision your test or even your production instance, and then deploy your application. And then from there, they can go and test, make sure everything's good, and then destroy it or keep it, and then obviously raise their bugs. This, obviously, particularly coming from an operations background, you can use it to install OS updates. Not even operations people enjoy installing OS updates, but unfortunately, it's part of the job. Our security team, we've all had that call from the security team. This needs to be patched. So what you can do here is you can use you can script out your upgrade process. So if you're using something like SCOM or WSUS, you can script out your upgrade. You can run it at 2 a.m. Using triggers as well. And then what that does is it takes the server owner out of the applying OS updates. I've had this happen time and time again, where someone would forget to restart their computer. You can't force it because ultimately they're working as well. So what you could do here is script that out using PowerShell, etc. Or even, you can also do it if you're doing your Windows updates or your Linux updates. You can script that out as well. But this is something I've saw time and time again. So you can use this. So you can come in, and also you can just come in and just hit run as well. So when it is convenient, they could log on to Octopus and then select run. Because OS updates, as much as they are a pain, they are a requirement, unfortunately. So another one is restarting problem services. This is what I did with the Octopus website. When you do get those bad gateway errors, you can automatically, there's a running joke with, turn it off and turn it back on again. Problem is it's so effective. So you can definitely do that with an Octopus as well. Not necessarily turn it off and turn it back on, but restart services, Azure web apps, database services, Windows services, and really all so many other things as well. And this really is one of my favorite use cases, because it's just, you can use it, something that can be fixed. You'll normally have some form of monitoring in place with New Relic or application insights, etc. But this really does kind of drive home how, because when I saw Runbooks, when we were talking about it in the middle of last year when we were speccing it up, it was something instantly I was just like, I would have absolutely loved this when I worked in operations, because it makes everything so much easier. This is another key use case. You can normally, like I was saying earlier on, you can have it, and you'll normally find that you've got web app or a web application in one location that goes down. It could be BGP issues, big protocol, IP, data centers go offline. You see even things like Microsoft go down occasionally. And with this, you can use it so you can fail it over to disaster recovery. You can have it, say, for instance, where you're either deploying new infrastructure from scratch or previously configured infrastructure. You may have to switch it on, then make a DNS call, and then switch that over, or a global load balancer as well. Again, with runbooks, you can schedule them, much like you can with deployment processes as well. So what you can do is you can have, say, for instance, a SQL backup. You can even use it. That's another one is instead of having some proprietary third party backup solution, you can do this, and it's in a centralized location. You only have to configure the permissions once. No one, people can't then just log on and do it as well. So publishing runbooks. By default, when you log on and you create your runbook, no one can actually use it, and only you can see it. It's in draft mode at that point. You can run it. Normally we say test it in development, but you can create a draft, and at that point, once you're happy with it and you've ran it and tested it, you normally find that you'll start with a local script and then push it to Octopus, and then from Octopus you can then start consuming it once you publish the runbook. And the good thing, like I said earlier on, with the permissions, it is a separate permission. So, for instance, once you publish it, user would have to have the run runbook permission. The runbook run permission. That's not entirely easy to say. And then with that, you can actually then schedule a trigger, give it another test, and then from there, republish that, and then it's then available for other users and to be consumed by scheduled triggers. And you can also do it over the API. So with Octopus, anything you can do within the portal, you can also do over the API as well. So yes, if you wish, you can also schedule that as well. You can do that. You can work with that over the API. Okay, so it's demo time. My favorite time of the day. Okay, so this is Octopus. This is for those of you who aren't familiar with Octopus. This is something it won't look quite like this. This is dark mode. We've only just released this on cloud. So this has just come out of beta. This is obviously with dark mode. It's actually it's one of my favorite new things as well, because with the dark mode, if there's an option for dark mode, then it's dark mode every time. I don't know how you feel about it. It tends to be a bit like Marmite or Vegemite, etc. Is you either tend to love it or hate it. I am definitely of the opinion of loving it. So what we're going to do today is also just one thing to be aware of. These are all fully available. What I would ask is don't connect in just now, just in case you go on and land up almost denial of service in the Octopus Cloud instance. But you can browse this using guest authentication. So we're going to talk about OctoFX. Just to provide some background, OctoFX is a sample application that Octopus built so that we can demo our multi-tier application. It consists of three separate things. It's a public, customer-facing ASP.NET MVC web application. It connects to a SQL database. And then lastly, there's also a Windows service, which is used as the deal settlement service. So I imagine there's quite a bit of infrastructure involved there, but this is just something that you can also use what's on our GitHub Octopus samples. I'll share the URL at the end of today's talk. So from here, you've got the deployment process. What you've got here is an approval deployment. You've got your usual SQL. You're doing your database deployment. From there, you're creating the SQL user, the database, all that sort of good stuff. So as you can see, and then we're deploying the database, and then deploying the website, and then lastly the Windows service. So as you can see, we've got a fully functional deployment process. And from here, you'll see that it last ran about an hour and 5 minutes ago, and all the way through to production. So let's jump in to Runbooks. These are under operations, so you can come in and you can do the overview. Okay, and you can see all the runs. Everything's green, which is really great. So you can see here we've got some different runbooks and triggers. But what I'd like to do is start by creating a runbook from scratch. So what happens is in this instance is we've got Dave the developer. In that instance, he comes up and he's like, Derek, he's like, there's a problem. One of the servers that I just done a deployment to came up saying that it's only got 400 meg worth of space. I'm like, wait a minute, okay. So RDP onto the server, I can see that there's just rubbish everywhere. It's like, people have downloaded ISOs when they're playing on this, when they've been looking on the servers. People have been doing, storing things on the C drive, and you're like, right, okay, wait a minute. So you go in, and it's generally in, it could be under even C, Windows temp, etc. And I'm like, right, okay. So I create a script, and I say, let's clean this up. I run it. It comes down the next minute. 20 gigs free. Like, great, okay, we're good to go. That's fixed. But at that point, I'm like, right, wait a minute. I need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. how many times has something happened? Obviously, how many times have you had that where a disk runs out, something goes offline, and then at that point you're getting a call, or a developer then has to jump on and fix it or something. So I've created a script, and what I've done is I've then come in and created this script. I've pasted it, the script that I've created. It's, you can set some location, it's going in, and then it's clearing everything out within these folders. So you've got these, some local users, people have downloaded ISOs, installed something on the server, and then never removed them. So that you can go in and just basically create this as a step template. Generally, from within Octopus, I normally recommend that you create anything that you're scripting out that isn't a community step template, or a built-in step. I would normally recommend creating it as a step template so that it can be reused across all your projects. There's no need to reinvent the wheel every time. So let's come back to OctoFX. So we're like, right, okay. So I want to automate this. I want to automate the cleanup of this. And I'm like, right, okay. So let's add a runbook. So come up, add a runbook, cleanup. Okay, we'll just call it server cleanup. Runbook to cleanup server. Select save. At this point, you'll see that you've got a runbook. Everything's good. You've nothing in the overview, mainly because there's nothing there to be displayed. So you can see here, you've normally got your runs, and you'll be familiar. I showed you earlier on. You'll see your deployment process. The deployment process and the runbook processes are very similar, but are completely separated. So I'm like, right, okay. So let's bring this in. This is just I'm just going to put in cleanup. I'm going to add the cleanup temp files script template that I've created previously. And I'm like, right, okay. So yeah, there we go. Clean up this. It's enabled. You want to run this direct on the deployment target. And the server was the Windows service, which is known as the rate service box. So what you've got here, you've got this there. You can have it, you can configure your environments, run conditions, and so forth, just like you can with deployment processes. So let's save. I'm like, right, okay, so I've got my runbook. I'm like, right, I'm going to run this. Let's so this is in production. We've already run this and we've cleaned it up, but I want to run a test, or I'm going to just want to make sure that it's good. So I'm going to select to run it in development. So select run. Everything comes back. This is good. Come in, have a look at the task log. Okay, so it's good. Everything's come in. It's cleaned up the files. Everybody's happy. So at that point, I'm like, right, yeah, let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. So what you've got here, so you've ran it. Everything's good. You've got here, and like I was mentioning earlier on, everything is in draft mode initially. So I'm going to publish this so I can then set up an automated task to do this. So there we go. You come in. You can also change the version. So you could come in and call it version 01 if you wish. Select publish. Okay, so that's it. You've got it here. This, you come into Runbooks. You've got your server cleanup. Everything's good here. What you want now to do is automate it. So you can come in, like, right, okay, so I'm going to add this schedule trigger. I want to do it. I'm going to do a server cleanup. And then I'm just going to come down. I'm going to select the runbook, which I've already created. I'm only going to do this in dev. And then you've got the trigger schedule. So we've got this trigger schedule. You can set daily. You can also do days per month or cron expressions. Definitely the most flexible. I would always recommend doing cron where possible, but in this instance, we're just going to do it for development. We're just going to do this once on a Sunday. So we come up, okay, so it's Sunday. We select the time zone. So obviously you could go to, you can go to +1, whatever time zone you're in, or whichever one you want to do it. So I'm going to do this interval. So it's just going to be once. You can also set it down to every 5 minutes as well. This is quite similar to cron as well. But what we want to do, we just do this one at midnight. There we go. Select save. And then from there, we now have set the server cleanup script. This is going to run the runbook called server cleanup, and it's going to run it in development. So what I want to do now is I'm going to create another one, but for test. Okay, so what we'll do is create runbook. Oh, sorry, server cleanup on test. Okay, and then I'm going to select the runbook, server cleanup. In this instance, what we'll just do is we'll do this for both test and production just to save some time. I'm sure you get the idea. And there we go, production. And we come down. We're going to do this daily for production. There's a greater need, and we're going to do it at 1 a.m. You could, again, every hour as well. If you had to do it every hour, I'd probably look at provisioning additional infrastructure, additional storage. So there we go. We've got this running every day and that, and then select save. At that point, you can come back. As you can see, you've got your this one that's for development and then for test and production. Excellent. Everybody's happy. Okay, so let's have a quick look at one of the more complex one. Often, I'm sure you do this all the time. You need that database. Generally, how it works is application code goes forward. So you go dev, test, pre-prod, production, and then what I find is the database or the data that resides within the database normally goes the other way. So you normally find that the data is coming back from production. If you've got a database that has personally identifiable information, you can also use data cleansing tools as well. So you could use things like Redgate's tool set to randomize or generate that data. So you can work with something that's production-like rather than production. However, if there's nothing there that's personally identifiable, or you can just you could just run a SQL backup and then import it back in. So we've got one here already that's called Backup Production Database and Restore to Environment. As you can see, this runs. You've got one for production. The last time this ran was back in January. This is what we've got here is with production, you're backing up production database and then pulling it back into lower environments. However, you could also use it as that database restore as well. So you may find that those long bank holiday weekends, sometimes you have to go in and do your restore test. You can automate it with Octopus. Again, you've got development and test as well. So let's jump in and have a look at what we're doing here. So we've got a manual intervention. A manual intervention check is like a gate, like an approval gate. What you can do is basically just have something. And the reason I've got this is it's set to only run for production. It is literally just hold on, wait a minute, this shouldn't be running for production. So that's just there. You'll normally just have, the data coming over from dev and test. You'll automate that. You can set that set schedules. So in this instance, we're backing up the database. We're just putting it out to an Azure location. We're specifying a server. Again, this is where you can reuse the variables that you set for your deployment process as well. So doing this, grabbing the backup, we're stopping the Azure web app in development or test, which is great. And then we're stopping the Windows servers just to allow for the restore to happen successfully. And then what we've got is we've written a SQL script. You'll see here that we've got a SQL script, and what this is doing is there's a bunch of parameters. We're reusing those variables again. We've got database servers, database names, admin users, passwords, all stored as sensitive variables so that you can reuse this within your script. We're then basically setting the dev and test into a single user. We're then doing the restoration of the data, and then at that point, then setting it back to multi-user, and then continuing with the rest of the runbook. You'll see that these are, I'm just remapping the user, just ensuring that everything is okay. And then at the very end, we're starting up the rate service, the website, and everything is back to normal. So at that point, you've normally got a database that's been restored. So as you can see, this works for both dev and test. So let's come back in. So this is the runbook that's happened. Sorry, that we've created, and then we come in again. What you'll see here is we've got the restore production database to test each evening, and then to development weekly. Generally find that development maybe doesn't require quite as much updating, but as you can see, we can come in, you can specify test, you can specify the schedule, and then obviously it only runs the ones as well. So, and we've got this daily. So that's, there we go. And then at that point, you've got this, it's all scheduled, but well, let's just run it live. I'm hoping that the demo gods are with me today. Okay, so I'm going to select run. I'm going to select test. Say, for instance, something's just happened. You need to pull something back urgently. So you can consume it as a one-off and also as a scheduled trigger. So I'm going to select run. And as we haven't changed it, there's no draft or anything like that. So at that point, we can come in and we can go through and have a look in the task summary. There we go. It's kicked off. Step one didn't run because ultimately step one, it's only for production. At this point, it's backing up the database. You should see this. There we go. You see that this has been backed up. And then it's going to stop the Azure web app. It's going to go through the rest of this. And then we should get that database restored. This can take some time. So whilst that's happening, I'm going to jump over and have a look at some other use cases quickly. So you can see here, we've got our runbooks. The other one, some use cases. I really dislike Notepad. Quite sometimes is I can have it. I just prefer VS Code. Everything is nicer. It's better. It's lovely. So what we've got here is we've got a deployment, a runbook process which I've created. I'm just ensuring that Chocolatey is installed. If not, then it installs Chocolatey. Chocolatey is a package management tool for Windows. If you've not heard of it, please use it. It's beautiful. You can just basically Choco install and then your application, Choco upgrade application. It's fantastic. If you're not using it, definitely take the time to check it out. So then at this point, we're installing VS Code. I've also, one of the things that you sometimes require .NET 4.7, for instance, 2.2 to see some logs correctly. And then that, what I can then do as well is if I need to, I can restart the server at the end of that. So if it normally at the end of the .NET installation, it normally requires a restore. So at that point, it'll restart the server, come back up. So if you're doing something there, you can actually build this into your infrastructure as code, so you can install your applications that you require as well. And then let's go back to Runbooks. Another one, this is the one that I was talking about earlier on. When Octopus.com was having some problems, I went in and created it was a slightly more nuanced than the one I'm about to show you, but what it was it was set on a scheduled trigger to run every 5 minutes, and then it would it would just test a URL. So what we do is we test the URL, and if the URL came back with a 200 response, it was like, yep, okay, that terminates at that point, and then it just runs again in 5 minutes. If it doesn't, so what you've got here is I have, so obviously I've specified the account, and I've got just a basic PowerShell script, real basic, that just, all it was just restart the Azure web app, and then specify the resource group. Again, you can also use variables for this, but I like to, for talks, I like to hard code stuff just to make it clear what we're doing. And then in this instance, we have a run condition that says only run this step when the previous step has failed. So obviously at that point, Octopus.com is down. It's like only run this restart or when it's down. And 99 times out of 100, it worked, which is always great. You don't have to have some crazy, just, turn it off, turn it back on again. It generally fixes something. Generally fixes something half of that, or most of the time anyway. Okay, so what we just want to do is we can jump in to the runs. We should find, yeah, there we go. So as you can see here, this was ran 4 minutes ago. The task log's all here. We've ran the backup. We've run this. We've stopped Azure Web App. We've restored the database. We've created the user. Um, and then we've also added the user back everything. So we come back in, and then let's come back, and we'll see here that if we open octofx.test, the website's up and running. So that's great. So that would have pulled the data back from production. So you can see the the new well, being British, you can see the pound just tanking as it goes down. So yeah. Okay, so that's that. So what we've got here now, so we went through that. You've got the monitor, and again, let's jump in and just have a look at the trigger. So we've got here monitor website and restart. This is only running production. Generally, if test went down, it's not a huge issue. We've got a cron expression here, and this is, I'm just running this every hour as a demo. So, you can also bring this down. You create your cron expression and run it based on that schedule. Okay. And what we should see is you can also go to the Runbook as well. So as you can see, there's lots of things, there's lots of flexibility there that are you can use Runbooks for, and as you can see, you can understand that this would very much you can reuse this and use things like step templates to really configure that. Okay, so let's jump back. That's the end of the demo. I just want to take a second. One of the things that I like to do at the end of each of my talks, generally this is better in person. However, I think it's something I try and do is try and encourage other people to talk, or at least encourage other people to talk. I've had imposter syndrome for a long time. It's really kind of held me back at times. And what you can do with imposter, with that, it just causes a lot of internal anxiety. It causes you basically problems. And it's like, you're constantly questioning yourself. And some of the tips that I've done that helped me get over it, and it still occasionally happens, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Really is try and be open about it. That's probably one of the hardest, but the most rewarding things. Talk to your partner about it. Then maybe talk to friends, colleagues as well. If you can't talk to your colleagues about it, then there's probably a bit of an issue there with your work environment. But being open about it, and what it will do is it will encourage other people to talk about it. We all make mistakes. We all kind of feel rubbish occasionally, but definitely just open up and talk about it. If you can, try and mentally reinforce yourself. Instead of, oh, wait a minute, I don't know X, try and focus on the stuff that you are really good at as well. Quite often I find is that I think I'm rubbish at something, and then you talk to someone else about it, and you suddenly, oh wait a minute, I'm actually really good at this. So like that, just start talking to people. Try and reinforce positivity. And it's okay not to know something. I only know, one of those things. It's like, just be open about it. And the thing is the way I see it is it's okay not to know something. And also it's a learning opportunity and an opportunity to grow as a person. Don't obsess about perfection. That 80-20 rule. At the end of the day, quite often, nothing ever gets to 100%. Like that, just do what you can. There is a little bit of faking it until you make it. I've been in situations in the past when I've went in as a consultant. I went in with a laptop once to a large organization. Their IT department was larger than the company that I worked for. And I went in and I went on my laptop. The project manager pulled out last minute. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I walk in and I'm talking about SQL databases to Oracle database administrators. I was terrified. But I got talking, and you have a chat. You're like, wait a minute, like, okay, like I know what I'm talking about. But like that again, there is maybe sometimes a bit of faking it until you make it wherever possible. And if you can, and if you feel up to it, or even if something you may not want to, try and give speaking a chance. Obviously try not to do it in your home office. However, try and give speaking a chance. And if that's not for you, you might be a blogger, you might be a tweeter, talk about it. But if you do know something that is that wants to do some talking, then try and encourage them. That's one of the things, like, I've mentored people in the past, and spending some time with them and really kind of just encouraging them is just such a massive thing. You can really help improve people's not only just their career, but their lives as well. Suddenly they get, they're working on things that are much more rewarding than they were previously. And the biggest tip I can give you is compare yourself to your yesterday, not someone else's today. You may compare yourself to someone, 6 months ago, 12 months ago. Write down the little things, the things that you achieve, the big things that you achieve as well. Um, that really helps me. I actually have a little journal that I write these things down. It's nice to look back like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, I done that, didn't I? And also, just don't compare yourself to someone else who, could have 10, 15, 20 years experience on you. And also, some people are just awesome at what they do. We're not all Scott Hanselman or Troy Hunt, etc. Just, you do you, let them do them, focus on the stuff that you enjoy and you're good at, but just try and, realize how awesome you are, basically. Okay, so Q&A. Let's jump over and see if we get any questions. Good question. Yeah, in a way, I mean, I'd say that Octopus and Ansible actually work quite well. There's definitely ways to do it. However, it's probably better for cloud infrastructure. But you can definitely do it on prem. You can use different types of PowerShell. But yeah, it could be used. It could be used instead of Ansible. It could be used with Ansible. There's lots of approaches there. Ansible is awesome as well, though. Yes, Alex, you can specify that. There's some trickery to that. If you do want to find out how in more detail, then just drop me an email. You can or a tweet. You can get me on advice@octopus.com or derek.campbell advice. At derek.campbell@octopus.com. But yes, you can actually use, you can call that. So obviously if step 2 fails, use that, then only run this. So yeah. Okay. Any tips on managing runbooks? Generally, what I would do is use just the right amount. I know that's a difficult thing and probably a bit awkward to say, but what that is don't have, if you've got 100 runbooks, like I'd probably step back and think about, can I more logically group these better together? And at the moment, good idea to, that's very Lord of the Ringsy, a run book to, rule them all. I like that. At the moment, we're just going to be creating that, so you can do run book, call run books from other run books. But again, you can use the API for that as well. I'm really think about what the best thing for you is. I would probably not run a run book that has all the access to other run books. But you certainly could do that. There's something called deploy a release step within Octopus, and that is something that you could use. Something similar within run books. Where the run books, the one about group multiple different run books in one common run, I would probably just use your step templates and then just have that one run book. So you could just import, like create your script as a step template. It can be reused in multiple run books within the same run book. So you could pull in, say, for instance, you've got script X, Y, and Z and ABC as well, but you only want some of them. Create a run book with those as a step template and then run your run book there. But yeah, those are some really good questions. Yeah, excellent. Any other questions? I'll give it another 30 seconds. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up then. So we've got some useful resources, just something to consider. You can check out some of the documentation on the website. We've got a whole bunch of webinars that I'll definitely check out. One of the things is Octopus is just one thing to be aware of, is there are also a free starter edition for Octopus server. So it's free for small teams up to 10 deployment targets, and that'll be forever. So if you do want to go on, you can spin up, we have that on premise and cloud, so you don't even have to spin up infrastructure for it. You can even install it on your laptop if you wish as well. Check out our events or any other recordings. Check out our GitHub Octopus samples. But we do have the samples.octopus.app as well. You can just log on as a guest user, and most of that will be available. You'll see all the scripts that I've used today. We have some Jenkins samples, some Team City samples as well, and then some Azure DevOps as well. So if you did attend the workshop that I ran over the past 2 days, you'll probably be familiar with this as well. Okay, so just want to say thank you very much for coming along to my talk today. Also, thanks so much for making NDC DevOps and sorry, thanks for coming along to NDC DevOps and also making it really special. This is my first talk in NDC. It's my first workshop at NDC, and I've had such a great time, and I hope that you have too. But certainly, thank you. All the best, and if you do want to, you can catch me on Twitter at DevOps Derek.